Patrick Jones, the secret heir to a multi-billion-dollar real estate empire, prefers anonymity, thrift store cardigans, and his 10-year-old Honda. His carefully constructed normal college life at Whitmore is shattered when he's partnered in advanced macroeconomics with the brilliant, authentic, and completely unattainable Dean's List student Athena Rivers. As Patrick struggles to keep his massive secret, Athena's best friend, Ivan, who is secretly in love with her, launches a series of disastrous yet hilarious sabotage attempts to keep the two apart. Billionaire Heir's Secret, A College Romance of Economics, Thrift Store Cardigans, and Sabotage. Part 1, The Economics of Attraction. Patrick Jones had perfected the art of being invisible while hiding in plain sight. It was a remarkable achievement for someone whose father owned half the commercial real estate in Manhattan and the other half of everywhere else that mattered. While his classmates at Whitmore University pulled all-nighters writing essays about wealth distribution, Patrick lived the antithesis of their theoretical discussions, though no one seemed to notice. He preferred it that way. His secret? Thrift store cardigans, a 10-year-old Honda Civic, affectionately named the Jalopy, and an almost supernatural ability to deflect personal questions with the conversational equivalent of a magic trick. Ask Patrick about his weekend and he'd somehow redirect the conversation to your grandmother's hip replacement. It was a gift, really. The fall semester of his senior year began like any other, uneventfully, which was precisely how Patrick liked his existence. He'd signed up for Advanced Macroeconomics not because he needed it, his trust fund manager handled those pesky financial details, but because economic theory was the one luxury his conscience allowed him to enjoy. There was something beautifully ironic about studying wealth inequality while personally embodying it. Then Athena Rivers walked into the lecture hall. Now, Patrick had seen beautiful women before. His father's galas were essentially catalogs of genetic lottery winners draped in designer labels and strategic plastic surgery. But Athena was different. She possessed the kind of beauty that made poets reach for their pens and economists forget about supply and demand curves entirely. She wore her dark hair in a perpetually messy bun that somehow looked intentional, her oversized sweater drowning her frame in a way that suggested she'd raided someone's grandfather's closet, a woman after Patrick's own sartorial heart. But it was her eyes that arrested him, sharp, intelligent, and currently narrowed at the syllabus as if it had personally offended her. Patrick watched as she chose a seat 3 rows ahead and to the left, prime viewing position, his traitorous brain noted, and settled in with the confident air of someone who knew exactly how attractive she was and found the whole thing rather tedious. "That's Athena Rivers," whispered Marcus, Patrick's closest acquaintance. Patrick didn't really do friends in the traditional sense. Campus beauty, Dean's List regular, and completely unattainable. I've seen grown men weep. "I have allergies," Patrick replied, not taking his eyes off her. "You don't have allergies." "I might develop some." Professor Whitmore began his lecture on market equilibrium, but Patrick was conducting his own economic analysis. The supply of women who made him forget his carefully constructed emotional barriers, 1. The demand for his attention from said woman, 0. Market status, severely imbalanced and utterly unfair. He was doomed. What Patrick didn't notice, because he was too busy not noticing Athena in an extremely focused way, was the young man who'd entered with her. Ivan Koskov was everything Patrick wasn't. Effortlessly social, artistically disheveled in a way that definitely wasn't purchased at Goodwill, and currently watching Patrick watch Athena with the intensity of a CIA operative who'd just identified a national security threat. Ivan had been Athena's best friend since freshman year, when he'd found her crying in the library over a failed statistics exam and her recent breakup. He'd appointed himself her protector, her confidant, and, in his more honest moments, the unspoken guardian of feelings he'd never quite articulated. Not that it mattered. Athena dated regularly, always choosing men who were objectively terrible, pretty but vapid, charming but unfaithful, or, in one memorable case, a philosophy major who'd tried to convince her that monogamy was a capitalist construct. That relationship had lasted exactly 2 weeks before Athena had responded that his face was about to become a capitalist reconstruct if he didn't leave immediately. Ivan had consoled her through each breakup, secretly relieved, always hoping that one day she'd notice him. really notice him. And now this unremarkable guy in a cardigan that looked like it had survived both world wars was staring at Athena with the expression of someone who just discovered religion, and Ivan felt something cold and unfamiliar settle in his chest. Competition. Part 2. The Invisible Hand Slapping Patrick Around. Patrick's courtship strategy, if it could be called that, consisted primarily of strategic positioning and what he termed ambient presence. He'd arrive at the lecture hall early to claim the seat that offered the optimal angle for occasional, definitely not creepy glances. He'd linger after class, pretending to have complex questions about elasticity curves while actually just existing in her general vicinity. It was pathetic, he knew, but it was also safe. The problem with being a secret billionaire was that Patrick had witnessed too many relationships implode under the weight of his father's money. Women who'd seemed genuine revealed themselves as gold diggers. Friends became sycophants. Everyone wanted something. So Patrick remained in his comfortable cocoon of anonymity, content to admire Athena from a distance, like some kind of emotionally constipated Victorian gentleman. Then fate, that capricious economist, intervened. Professor Whitmore announced a semester-long project, paired research papers on a topic of their choosing. Partners would be randomly assigned. Patrick felt his stomach drop as Whitmore began reading names from his tablet. Patrick Jones and Athena Rivers. The universe, Patrick decided, had a terrible sense of humor. Athena turned around, scanning the room for her assigned partner. Patrick raised his hand with all the enthusiasm of someone volunteering for dental surgery without anesthesia. Their eyes met. She smiled, politely, professionally, the way one might smile at a coworker whose name you couldn't quite remember. Patrick's heart performed a gymnastics routine that would have scored a 10.0 at the Olympics. "Hey," Athena said after class, approaching him with her backpack slung over one shoulder. "Patrick, right? Want to grab coffee and discuss topics?" Patrick's brain, that usually reliable organ, decided this was the perfect moment to abandon ship. "Coffee? Yes. Liquid? Hot. Iced is also. Beverages are. I have thoughts about them." Athena's smile shifted from polite to amused. "Okay then, the grind at 4? "The grind, 4. Numbers and places, I'm excellent at both." She laughed, actually laughed, and Patrick felt something dangerous bloom in his chest. Hope. What neither of them noticed was Ivan, standing 10 feet away, having witnessed the entire exchange. His expression could have curdled milk. "Hey, Athena," Ivan called out, jogging over. "Ready for lunch?" "Oh, Ivan, yeah, just a sec." She turned back to Patrick. "See you at 4? Patrick nodded, not trusting his verbal skills to recover quite yet. As Athena and Ivan walked away, Ivan glanced back over his shoulder, his eyes meeting Patrick's. The message was clear. "I'm watching you." Patrick, blissfully oblivious to the declaration of war, simply felt elated. Coffee with Athena? This was happening. He immediately began catastrophizing about everything that could go wrong, which was actually his brain's version of optimism. Part 3. The Invisible Enemy. Ivan prided himself on being a good person. He volunteered at animal shelters. He helped elderly neighbors with their groceries. He'd once spent an entire weekend teaching his technologically challenged mother how to use FaceTime. But watching Athena discuss her coffee date with Patrick, though she kept insisting it wasn't a date, just a project meeting, Ivan felt something decidedly uncharitable brewing in his soul. "He seems nice," Athena said, picking at her salad. "Bit awkward, but in an endearing way. Did you see his sweater? I think it's older than we are." "Probably has moths," Ivan muttered. "What?" "Nothing, just you don't know anything about this guy." Athena raised an eyebrow, "Which is why normal people have conversations. Novel concept, I know." "I'm just saying, remember philosophy, bro? Remember finance, Chad? Remember—" The long list of my romantic failures. Thanks, Ivan. Really feeling the supportive best friend energy here. Ivan immediately felt guilty, which only annoyed him more. Sorry, I just worry about you. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I know, but it's literally just coffee to discuss economic theory, the least romantic topic imaginable. Ivan wanted to argue that any topic could be romantic with the right person, but that felt dangerously close to revealing things he'd kept carefully buried for 3 years. Instead, he smiled and changed the subject, and began plotting. The Grind was Whitmore's busiest coffee shop, situated in the heart of campus. Ivan knew this because he'd studied it the way generals studied battlefields. He arrived at 3, 15 minutes before Athena's meeting with Patrick, and positioned himself at a corner table with clear sightlines to the entrance. His plan was simple: observe, identify weaknesses, and ensure that Patrick revealed himself as unsuitable before Athena developed any real interest. It wasn't sabotage, Ivan told himself. It was protection, preventive friendship maintenance. Patrick arrived at 3, 8 minutes early. He ordered something, black coffee, Ivan noted with disdain. How boring. Claimed a table by the window, and proceeded to nervously reorganize the salt and pepper shakers into what appeared to be a tiny geometric formation. Weirdo, Ivan thought, though the gesture was admittedly kind of cute in a neurotic way. He squashed that observation immediately. Athena breezed in at exactly 4, because of course she did. She was pathologically punctual. Patrick jumped up so quickly he nearly knocked over his coffee geometry project, then overcorrected into an awkward half-bow that wasn't quite a bow. From his surveillance position, Ivan couldn't hear their conversation, but he could observe the body language. Athena was leaning forward, interested. Patrick was talking with his hands, passionate about something. She laughed at something he said, genuine laughter, not the polite kind. Ivan's coffee suddenly tasted bitter. They were discussing economic theory, judging by the textbooks now spread across the table, but there was an energy between them that had nothing to do with fiscal policy. Patrick said something that made Athena's eyes widen, then she countered with what was clearly a challenge because his whole face lit up like she'd just handed him a gift. This was bad. Ivan pulled out his phone and texted Athena, "Emergency, can you call me?" He watched her check her phone, frown, and type back, "What's wrong?" "Just call, important." Athena excused herself from the table, and Ivan watched her step outside before answering his call. "What's the emergency?" she demanded. Ivan's mind raced. I forgot to tell you earlier. Your mom called me looking for you, said your aunt is in the hospital." "What? Which aunt? What happened?" Ivan frantically tried to remember Athena's family tree. "Aunt Susan?" "Ivan, I don't have an Aunt Susan." "Shit. Did I say Susan? I meant the hospital called about your car's extended warranty?" There was a long, dangerous pause. "Ivan Koskov, did you just make up an emergency to interrupt my project meeting?" "No, I would never." "Okay, yes, but hear me out. I'm going back inside. We'll discuss your sudden psychotic break later." She hung up. Ivan watched through the window as Athena returned to the table, shaking her head and laughing about something as she showed Patrick her phone. Patrick grinned, and they both looked out the window, directly at Ivan's table. He ducked behind his laptop, smooth as a startled elephant. Smooth, Ivan. Real smooth. Part 4. The Best Laid Plans of Mice and Meddling Best Friends. Over the next 2 weeks, Patrick and Athena met regularly for their project. They'd chosen to research the economic impact of social media on traditional business models, a topic that allowed them to debate everything from influencer culture to the death of brick-and-mortar retail. More importantly, they talked about everything else. Patrick learned that Athena wanted to work in nonprofit economic development, that she stress-baked elaborate cakes at 2 a.m., and that she'd once punched a guy at a party for slipping something into her friend's drink. Patrick fell approximately 40% more in love with her upon hearing that story. Athena discovered that Patrick was surprisingly well-traveled, had strong opinions about obscure economic theorists, and possessed a bone-dry wit that caught her off guard with its precision. She found herself looking forward to their meetings with an intensity that had nothing to do with their academic obligations. What she also noticed was Ivan's increasingly bizarre behavior. He'd accidentally interrupted 3 of their coffee meetings. He'd texted her elaborate warnings about strangers based on a podcast about serial killers. Subtle, Ivan, real subtle. He'd even tried to set her up with his cousin Trevor, despite knowing full well that Trevor's primary personality trait was his extensive collection of energy drink cans. "Ivan's being weird," she mentioned to Patrick during their 4th meeting. "Weird how?" Patrick asked, though he definitely noticed the way Ivan glared at him across the lecture hall like Patrick had personally conflicted his entire family line. "Overprotective, more than usual." Athena stirred her latte thoughtfully. "He's my best friend, but sometimes I think he forgets I'm an adult who can make her own decisions." Patrick felt a complicated swirl of emotions. Part of him understood having protective friends. Another part wondered if Ivan's protectiveness came from a different place entirely. And a third, more insecure part worried that Ivan knew something about Patrick that would make Athena run for the hills. "Maybe he just cares about you," Patrick offered carefully. "Maybe, or maybe he needs a hobby that isn't managing my life." Their eyes met across the table, and something shifted. The air felt heavier, charged with possibility. "Athena, Patrick began, then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and paled. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just my father wants to have dinner this weekend." Patrick's tone suggested he'd rather eat glass. "Not close with your family?" "It's complicated." Patrick's expression shuddered, and Athena recognized the look of someone with carefully guarded secrets. She understood that. Everyone had their things. What Athena didn't know was that Patrick's father had just texted, "Time to discuss your future with the company. Saturday, 7 p.m., Lee Bernardin. Don't be late." The company. The multinational real estate empire. The life Patrick had been avoiding thinking about for 4 blissful years. The life that had nothing to do with secondhand cardigans and genuinely earned academic achievements and the beautiful girl sitting across from him who thought he was just Patrick, not Patrick Jones, heir to billions. Part 5. Operation Catastrophic Friendship. Ivan knew he was spiraling, but self-awareness wasn't stopping the spiral. It was just making him spiral with additional guilt as a bonus prize. He'd tried the direct approach, failed. He'd tried the subtle approach, also failed. He'd tried setting Athena up with literally anyone else, catastrophically failed. Trevor had spent the entire lunch talking about energy drink flavor profiles. Now, sitting in his apartment with his roommate Carlos, Ivan contemplated his next move. "Dude, you need to just tell her how you feel," Carlos said, not looking up from his video game. "I can't. It'll ruin everything. 3 years of friendship gone." "So instead, you're going to sabotage her potential relationship with Cardigan guy, and that won't ruin the friendship?" "It's different." "It's really not." He's wrong for her." "Based on what? Your detailed stalking? Observations?" Ivan glared at him. "He's too quiet, too secretive. Who doesn't talk about their family? It's suspicious." "Maybe he has a complicated relationship with them. Novel concept." "Or maybe he's hiding something disqualifying." Carlos finally paused his game. "Ivan, mi amigo, I say this with love. You're being an idiot. Either tell Athena how you feel, or step back and let her be happy." But Ivan couldn't do either. The thought of confessing and losing her friendship terrified him. The thought of watching her fall for someone else killed him. So he remained in limbo, that special hell of his own construction. His phone buzzed. "Athena, drinks tonight? Need to vent about my mother's latest guilt trip about my career choices." Ivan smiled despite himself. These were his favorite nights, just the two of them, talking for hours, her trusting him with her frustrations and fears. This was what he'd miss if he ruined things by wanting more. "Always," he texted back. The usual spot? You know it, 8 p.m. Their usual spot was a dive bar called the Questionable Decision, which they'd ironically discovered had the best wings on campus. They'd claimed a booth in the back as their own, spending countless nights there over the years. But when Ivan arrived that night, his good mood evaporated instantly. Patrick was there. Not with Athena. He was at the bar, seemingly alone, nursing what looked like whiskey and staring at his phone with an expression of profound dread. Ivan's detective instincts, read stalker tendencies, activated immediately. He chose a seat with a clear view of Patrick while staying hidden in the crowd. Patrick ordered another drink, then another. His jaw was clenched, his shoulders tense. Then Patrick answered a phone call. Even across the noisy bar, Ivan could see Patrick's expression shudder completely. He watched as Patrick said a few terse words, then hung up and dropped his head into his hands. Ivan felt an uncomfortable surge of something that might have been sympathy. Patrick looked defeated, human, vulnerable in a way that made Ivan's antagonism feel suddenly petty. Then his phone buzzed. Running 10 minutes late. Order me the usual? Athena. Ivan was seized by a terrible idea. Not terrible as in bad, though it was definitely that. Terrible as in horribly, awfully perfect. He texted Patrick. It took a moment to find his number. Ivan definitely hadn't already looked it up from the class group chat. That would be crazy. And then he composed his message carefully. Hey man, it's Ivan, Athena's friend. She's on her way to the bar. Wanted to give you a heads up. Let Patrick think. Let Patrick panic about the collision of whatever separate worlds he was keeping apart. Let him reveal his unsuitability all on his own. Ivan watched Patrick check his phone, watched his eyes widen in panic, watched him frantically signal for his check. Perfect. Except, then Patrick stood up, swayed slightly. How much had he been drinking? And instead of leaving, he started walking directly toward Ivan's hiding spot. Ivan froze, rabbit in headlight style. Patrick stopped at his table, clearly trying to focus. You texted me? Yes, thought you should know. That you've been sabotaging me? Patrick's words were slightly slurred, but his gaze was sharp. I'm not an idiot, Ivan. I know you've been trying to keep Athena and me apart. Ivan's face flushed. I'm protecting her. From what? From me? Patrick laughed bitterly. Trust me, you don't need to work that hard. I'm already a disaster. Despite himself, what happened? Patrick slumped into the booth uninvited. My father. He wants me to take over the family business, leave school, start learning the real world instead of playing at being normal. Your family has a business? Something like that. Patrick's smile was sharp and broken. You want to know my secret, Ivan? The reason I'm wrong for Athena? I'm rich. Absurdly, grotesquely rich. My father is Lawrence Jones. As in Jones International Properties, as in Forbes list regular, as in everything Athena stands for, authenticity, earned success, actual merit. I'm the opposite of that. Ivan stared. Lawrence Jones. He knew that name. Everyone knew that name. You're, a fraud, a liar, a trust fund kid playing dress-up in cheap cardigans. Patrick's voice cracked. And the worst part? I'm falling in love with her, with someone who would absolutely hate me if she knew the truth. The words hung between them, raw and devastating. Ivan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. All his carefully constructed antagonism crumbled in the face of Patrick's obvious misery. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, Ivan finally said. Patrick blinked. Excuse me? You think Athena would hate you because your father has money? Athena, who judges people based on their character? Who's literally writing her thesis on how economic background doesn't determine worth? But you're an idiot, Ivan continued, warming to his theme despite himself. You're an idiot who's clearly crazy about her, who actually listens when she talks, who makes her laugh, who treats her like a person and not a prize. He paused. You're probably good for her. Damn it. Patrick stared at him in confusion. But you've been trying to... I know what I've been trying to do, Ivan sighed, feeling suddenly exhausted. I've been in love with her for 3 years, never told her because I'm a coward, watched her date terrible guys and convinced myself I was being noble by waiting. He met Patrick's eyes. Then you showed up, and you weren't terrible. That was inconvenient. They sat in silence for a moment, two rivals united in their shared recognition of being absolutely pathetic. So, what now? Patrick asked. Now? Now I do the right thing. Ivan pulled out his phone. I text Athena, tell her I can't make it tonight, but coincidentally you're here. You sober up, tell her the truth about everything, and I go home and eat my feelings. Ivan, don't thank me. Just don't hurt her, okay? Because rich or poor, if you break her heart, I'll end you. I might do it politely, but I'll definitely end you. Patrick smiled despite everything. Fair. Ivan was texting when Athena burst through the bar door, scanning the crowd. Her eyes landed on their booth, and her expressions cycled through surprise, confusion, and suspicion in rapid succession. What is happening here? She demanded, approaching them. Ivan, I thought we were meeting alone. Patrick, what are you doing here? Are you drunk? Are you two bonding? Both men looked at her, then at each other. I'm leaving, Ivan announced. Athena, stay. Talk to Patrick. He has things to tell you. He looked at Patrick. Good luck. You'll need it. Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd before Athena could protest. She slid into the booth across from Patrick, her eyes narrowed. Okay, seriously, what the hell is going on? Part 6. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the economic impact. Patrick looked at Athena, beautiful, brilliant, authentic Athena, and felt the weight of his secrets like chains. I haven't been entirely honest with you, he began. Athena's expression cooled. If this is where you tell me you have a girlfriend? No, God, no, nothing like that. He took a breath. My father is Lawrence Jones. She blinked. Like the Lawrence Jones? The one and only. The real estate billionaire Lawrence Jones? That's the one. Athena leaned back, processing. Okay, that's unexpected. But why the secrecy? Why the, she gestured at his attire, whole thrift store aesthetic? Because money ruins everything, Patrick said simply. Every friendship, every relationship, every genuine connection I've ever tried to make gets poisoned by it. People either want something from me or they resent me for having what they don't. I came to Whitmore to be normal, to earn something based on merit, to meet someone who might actually like me for me. Someone like you. The word came out raw. I know we've only been working together for 2 weeks, but Athena, you're everything. You're brilliant and passionate, and you don't take anyone's crap. You make me want to be brave instead of hiding behind cardigans and fake normalcy. And I'm terrified because my father wants me to leave school, take over the company, and I don't want that life. But I also don't want to lose this. He gestured between them. Whatever this might become. Athena was quiet for a long moment, her expression unreadable. You're right, she finally said. You haven't been honest. Patrick felt his heart sink. But neither have I. He looked up in surprise. Athena smiled ruefully. I knew who you were. Not at first, but about a week into our project, I Googled you. The internet is very thorough about the Jones family. You knew? I knew. And I didn't say anything because you clearly didn't want to talk about it. And honestly, Patrick, I don't care about your father's money. I care about the guy who spent 20 minutes arguing with me about whether cryptocurrency is a legitimate economic innovation or an elaborate Ponzi scheme. I care about the guy who noticed I was stressed about my mom and brought me stress-baking supplies without making a big deal about it. I care about you. Patrick felt something crack open in his chest. Something that might have been hope or joy or terror or all three. Really? Really? Though I am slightly annoyed you thought I was shallow enough to hate you for your family's wealth. Give me some credit. I am an idiot. Yes, but you're my idiot. If you want to be. Patrick laughed, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. I really, really want to be. Athena reached across the table and took his hand. Good. Now tell me about this father situation. They talked for hours. Patrick explained his father's expectations, his own dreams of using his privilege to actually help people rather than just accumulate more wealth. Athena listened, challenged him, supported him, and helped him see options he hadn't considered. You could finish school, she suggested, then join the company, but push for changes, sustainable development, affordable housing initiatives. Use your position for good. My father would never go for it. Then make him go for it. You're his heir. You have leverage. Patrick stared at her in wonder. How are you so smart? Genetics and spite. I'm gifted that way. He laughed, and she squeezed his hand, and for the first time since his father's text, Patrick felt like maybe everything would be okay. Part 7. The Aftermath, or How Ivan Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Being the Third Wheel. The next morning, Ivan woke to 17 text messages. Most were from Athena. OMG, you knew? Why didn't you tell me Patrick was loaded? Also, thank you for leaving us alone to talk. Also, I'm mad at you for plotting. Also, I love you and you're my best friend. But seriously, we need to talk about your behavior. One was from Patrick. Thank you, I mean it. Also, Athena says you're coming to dinner with us tomorrow and it's non-negotiable. Ivan groaned and pulled his pillow over his face. Carlos poked his head in. Still alive? Barely. I think I did a good thing, but it feels terrible. That's called growth, Hermano. Proud of you. The dinner was awkward at first. Ivan sat across from Patrick and Athena, who kept looking at each other with expressions that made Ivan feel like he was intruding on something private, and wondered what exactly he was supposed to say. So, Athena began, her tone deceptively casual. Ivan, Patrick told me about your little sabotage campaign. Ivan choked on his water. In your defense, Patrick added quickly, you were terrible at it. I was not. Ivan stopped. Wait, why am I defending my competence at sabotage? Athena laughed. Because you're an idiot with good intentions. Ivan, I love you. You're my best friend, and I know you were trying to protect me. But you need to trust me to make my own choices, even if they turn out badly. They won't, Patrick interjected. Turn out badly. I'll make sure of it. Very confident for someone who couldn't string a sentence together during our first meeting, Athena teased. I was nervous. You're terrifying. I'm really not. You absolutely are. Ivan watched them bicker affectionately and felt something settle in his chest. Not quite peace. It still hurt, watching her happy with someone else, but something like acceptance. For the record, Ivan said, if you hurt her, I will destroy you. Slowly, creatively. Noted and respected, Patrick replied solemnly. And Patrick, if your rich people family gives her any problems, I'll destroy them too. Ivan, Athena started. I'm protective. It's my thing. You don't get to take that away just because you're happy now. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I wouldn't dream of it. Who else would threaten my boyfriend with creative destruction? Boyfriend? Patrick's face lit up. Is that what I am? Don't get cocky. You're on probation. I'll take it. Ivan smiled, despite the ache in his heart. Maybe this was what growing up meant. Wanting someone's happiness, even when it wasn't with you. It sucked, but it also felt right. So, he said, flagging down the waiter, this dinner is on Patrick, right, since he's secretly loaded? Ivan, Athena protested. But Patrick was already laughing. Order whatever you want. I have 3 years of secret wealth to make up for. I like him, Ivan decided. He can stay. Ah, thank God, Patrick deadpanned. I was so worried. Epilogue, 6 months later. The spring semester brought changes. Patrick had a come-to-Jesus meeting with his father, or more accurately, a come-to-Jesus PowerPoint presentation about ethical real estate development and social responsibility. Lawrence Jones didn't love it, but he respected his son's conviction enough to agree to a trial period. Patrick would finish his degree, then join the company with the mandate to develop affordable housing initiatives. You're going to lose money, his father had warned. Then we'll make it back elsewhere, Patrick had replied. You didn't become successful by never taking risks. Lawrence had smiled at that. Maybe his son had inherited more than just his fortune. Athena graduated summa cum laude and accepted a position with a nonprofit focused on economic development in underserved communities. She and Patrick found an apartment together, a modest place that Patrick's father considered quaint and Athena considered still too expensive, but you're paying, so I'll allow it. Their relationship wasn't perfect. They argued about everything from fiscal policy to whose turn it was to do dishes. But they also laughed constantly, challenged each other, and built something real. Ivan, for his part, had started dating a graphic designer named Sophie, who he'd met at an art gallery opening. She was funny, talented, and refreshingly unconnected to his complicated history with Athena. I like her, Athena told him one night when the four of them went out together. She's good for you. Yeah? Yeah, you deserve to be happy, Ivan. So do you. They smiled at each other, the easy smile of people who'd weathered storms and come out stronger. Patrick appeared at Athena's elbow with drinks. What are we smiling about? Friendship, Athena said, taking her glass, and questionable life choices that worked out anyway. I'll drink to that, Ivan agreed. They toasted to economics and love and the invisible hand of fate that sometimes knew better than careful planning, to secrets revealed and friendships tested, and the beautiful chaos of letting people in. Patrick looked at Athena, who was laughing at something Sophie said, her eyes bright with joy. He thought about the scared boy who'd walked into that economics class, convinced he'd have to hide forever. He'd been wrong about a lot of things, but he'd been right about her. Hey, Athena said, catching him staring. What are you thinking about? Market equilibrium, he replied with a straight face. Liar. Supply and demand. Patrick Jones, are you getting romantic about economics? Maybe. Is it working? She kissed him, soft and sure. Every time. Ivan groaned. You two are disgusting. Sophie, let's be disgusting too, just to even things out. Deal, Sophie agreed, and they were. Later, walking home under the spring stars, Athena leaned into Patrick's side. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For being brave enough to let me in, for trusting me with the truth. Thank you for not running away when you learned I was a trust fund kid in disguise. Please, I have a thing for secret billionaires and thrift store cardigans. It's very specific. He laughed, the sound echoing off the buildings around them. Somewhere in the city, the world continued its complicated dance of wealth and poverty, privilege and struggle. But here, in this moment, there was just the two of them, two people who'd found each other despite the odds, despite the secrets, despite a well-meaning best friend's terrible sabotage attempts. It wasn't a perfect love story, but it was theirs. And in the end, that was the only market equilibrium that mattered. The end. The end.
I love making these videos for you. If you liked this story, then please like, subscribe to my channel, and switch on the notifications for more entertaining stories. Please also leave a comment for any story suggestions.